Welcome everyone. In this session we're going to see how to create the customer invoice and also how to send the invoice to the customer. Also we're going to see some different template of customized sample for the invoices. So let's have a look. So to send or create invoice we have to go to the sales, and from the sales we have to go to the invoice. So once we go there, we'll see the invoice information that we have to create. So now you can see here we have the company name, and we have all the customer detail here, and also we can see here our navigation option here. It says create invoice. Now this button create invoice will help us to create the invoice. If we like to import some invoice, if there's a lot of invoice at the same time we have to import, we can do that as well. But if there's only one invoice, we can always create from here. So all you have to do, you have to click create invoice, and it will take us to the next page where we can actually input all the information for the customer and create the invoice. So let's have a look. Now of course, like the invoice is the default setting that we have seen before, that 30 days the due period, but if I like to change it, I can always do that. So normally the invoice is due within 30 days automatically. So let's say the first thing we need the customer information. So if I already have the customer listed on the QuickBook, if I click I can see it, or if I just type a name I can see it. If this is a new customer, I can always click add new. That will give us the option to make a new customer in the QuickBook. So let's say I have a customer called Edwin. So I'm adding this customer, and I like to send invoice for sort of services I provided or product, whatever it is. Now the billing address come automatically because I have this customer already in my system. The terms is 30 days. If I like to change it, I can always do that. And the invoice date and due date is after 30 days, because when we have set up our account, we have put the invoice is due after 30 days. The next thing is the invoice number. Invoice number is always automated by the QuickBooks so that it doesn't match with the last invoice. So it will give you the next invoice automatically. But if you like to change the invoice number, you can always do that. Also, if you like to add the customer location from where this customer from, you can always add that. Now the next one we have here, so the product or service. So let's say, for example, what sort of services we offer to this customer. Now if we already have the service listed, we can add it here, or we can add new. So if the service or product I never sell to him before, or I never provide, I can always click add new. Otherwise we can say like whatever we have provided before, we can always say, for example, we providing the catering service to this employee, to this customer, and the description is catering for food and beverage. We can always edit that if I like. The quantity and the rate, let's say quantity is 1 and rate is 200. Now the VAT tax is exclusive. Exclusive means the net is 200 and the VAT 20% will be calculated on this 200. So for example, if my net is 200 and my VAT will be 20% on 200, that's 40, so total is 240. If the customer already paid any amount, I can record it as a deposit, so it will be reduce the total amount. If it is not, then I can leave it empty. If any discount I like to offer, I can always add the discount percentage. For example, if I like to say 10%, so 10% will be discounted. If I like to enter the value, how much is the discount, I can put the value as well. So we have the option to do both. Then once we're happy in the invoice, if I like to make any message on the invoice, I can always do that. So here you can see the invoice message. We have please send payment to HSBC account and sort code this number. If I like to add anything else, I can always do that. Also, if I like to send any sort of attachment, for example, the purchase order or any sort of thing I like to attach, I can always do that by clicking this attachment. So it will give me the option to attach this file with this invoice. Once I'm happy with that, all we have to do, we have to click on the right bottom navigator. We have a save and send. Now to send the invoice, remember that we should have the email address of the customer. If we don't have the email address of the customer, we'll not be able to send the invoice. So it's very important you should have the email address of the customer. So after what we do save and send. And this send option, we have few ways you can send the invoice. First, we can say save and close. We can just save the invoice, we don't have to send. We can just say save and new, so this invoice will be closed and the new invoice will be open. And if I like to save and share in WhatsApp, I can always do that as well, so that will be shared with the WhatsApp as well. Or if I like to save and send, so it will be saved at by the same time this invoice will be sent to the customer as well. So we have this option anyway. The next option we have here to customize. So for example, if I like to customize this invoice, I can always do that. So if you click customize, it will give us some option. For example, if I click new style, so it will take me to the new style, but I have to save the invoice before I go to the next page, otherwise it will not be saved. Let's say if I like to change my invoice, how does it look like? For example, on the style section, I have a 3 section for the customize: design, content, and the email. So let's look at the design. So if I am not happy with this design of this invoice, I can always change that. For example, if you just click here, change up the template, it will give me a lot of template here. So the one I like, I can always go with that. Then after that, I can add a logo to my invoice, and also like if I like to change the color or if I like to print it, so how does it look like after printing, I can always do that. So this one will always have the default option anyway. The next thing, we have a content. The content option will have divided into 3 sections. The first section we have here, this section is called header, so we can change the detail of the company name, and if I like to change any information, I can change from here. So you can see company number, address, then invoice. I can write it down, I can change everything from here. So this is the first section. The next section, we have the activity. On the activity section, I can write the description of the product, how much it is, how much is the rate. And the final section we have here for the calculation. So the footer section, we can always change it based on our requirement. So this sort of thing we can design based on our requirement. Once we are happy, we can click it done, and we can save as much as template we like. There is no limit for that. So you can always save it, and we can always say like I like this one, and if you click done, it will be completed. Now, of course, like the next thing we have to know how to send this invoice. It's very important to understand how to send it to the customer and what sort of information we're going to see. Now, for example, if I like to see the email section, let's have a look at the email section. The email section will show us what email the customer will receive after sending this invoice. So let's have a look at the email section. All right, the email section we can see here. So they said the subject of the invoice, then from QuickBook, and that is the company name, invoice number, due date, and the amount. So here we can add the message. So you can see any message I like to add, I'll be able to add here, and this message will be gone with this invoice link to the customer. And if the customer like to pay, they just can click here, pay invoices, and it will take to the card detail information, so they have to enter the payment detail to make the payment. So it's quite straightforward and easy from the QuickBook. So all you have to do, you have to make everything ready. When you are happy, you just click like done, so it will be automatically sent to the customer. You can always do the reminder email as well. So if you think like this email you sent and the payment did not receive yet, so you can always do the reminder email as well. Another good option the QuickBook have, like if you send the reminder or the invoice by email or the WhatsApp, so as soon as they view this email, or if they open the WhatsApp text to see the invoice, then you can see the actual view, like they have seen this invoice. So that will give you a better understanding like to credit control for the trade receivables. All right, so this is basically our invoice section. So we can create the invoice, we can make customize, we can send the invoice, or we can save it, or we can change any sort of part we like in order to send information based on the company requirement. Now of course, like, this is one of the important area for the invoice, and as I said, like, normally the invoice is sending to the credit customer. If you like to see the journal, you'll be able to see this section. So once you save invoice, for example, if I like to save this invoice, let's make this invoice once again, and to just say we have a catering, and it says £200, it's 240, so just click save. Now once you click the save, you'll see under the bottom section there's a new section is added, it's called more. So after you save the invoice, you'll be able to see this section more. Now the more section will give you some option. For example, if you like to delete the invoice, if you like to void it, or if you like to look at the audit history or transaction journal. So if you like to see the transaction journal, what is the journal for this transaction, you'll be able to see it. Remember that if it is invoice, it will be always the debtors account will be the debit and the income account will be credit, and if it is a sales receipt, then the bank or cash account will be debit and the income account will be credit. So if you are confused about any sort of transaction, you can always look at the transaction journal, and it will help you to show you what sort of transaction it is. So let's have a look. What is the transaction journal we have here? So you can see the transaction journal here. Debtors account is debit 240, including the VAT, and the income account billable expense, so this is our credit, the net amount 200, and the VAT account is a credit, so this is the VAT. So if I added 200 and 240, so it will give you 240, so debit and credit. So you can see the debtor means is invoice, so it's a credit customer. If you're confused, you can always check the transaction journal. Is very important to understand the difference between these two. So hopefully on the next section we're going to talk about our expense and the bills, and we'll understand more about our QuickBook transaction.